that you guys are going to be there.
Yep.
Had you guys had that meeting yet? And how far apart are you really?
Well, so, in terms of the specifics, going to keep that between us, but we've had dialogue with Drew. We've sent something to him. We are actually scheduled to meet with Drew today at some point, and so I've had conversations with Kyron. He knows how important he is to us. Obviously, he's got another year left on his contract, so we'll see if we can get something done, but he knows how important he is to us. As far as just bridging that gap, we'll see how far that we have to go for that, but he is a very important part of what we want to be moving forward, what he's meant to us, his toughness, his physicality, just the energy at which he plays. He knows how much I love him, and so we'll see if we can get something done. We'll be modified with him. He got some shoulders cleaned up. It was actually something that I think is going to really be beneficial to him. He feels great. He is working through the rehab process. We'll probably be careful in regards to even how we're going to handle it, through OTAs, just without having pads on. But it's not going to inhibit his ability for sure for training camp. And we might have to modify him, but I haven't really gone down that road with Reggie.
So I know he's now with Seattle, but in regard to Cooper,
sure.
I mean, at what point did you and the Rams make a decision that you were going to move on?
Yeah, so there was a lot of careful consideration, Gary, and we waited for the dust to settle. So Kevin, Les, Tony, myself, we ended up going away for a couple days, kind of just an after-action review, looking at all things as far as our team, the guys that are going to be free agents, what are some of the different things that we want to try to be able to have as a long-term vision, short-term. And we talked about Cooper a lot during those couple days when we ended up going away, and we came to the conclusion, and that was when we got back and I sat down with him, told him that we were going to seek a trade. If we weren't able to find a trade partner, then we would end up granting you your release. And it was a challenging conversation, but he couldn't have been more classy, even just to watch the way he handled the Seattle press conference, the authenticity, the vulnerability, but that was a hard conversation for me, for him, but it was something that at the end of the day, it was a football decision, and it doesn't change the legacy, all the great things, more importantly, the great person that he is. But we do have a responsibility to the collective, and it was what we felt like was the best decision for our football team moving forward. And not easy, but that's what our responsibility is.
Kind of since indicated, there was really no opportunity to even counter and say, hey, how can we make this work?
Sure.
Did you guys kind of just take that position like, hey, is it just that clear cut, like we're moving on?
Well, you don't want it to sound like it's that cut and dry, but I think at the end of the day, he's meant so much. Felt like it was a little bit different in terms of the direction that we were going to go with that receiver room. I think it does provide a great opportunity to be able to see Puka Nacua continue to ascend. He learned so much from Cooper over these last couple of years, but now there's always been that respectful deference. Now you get a chance to be able to continue to learn from Devontae Adams while continuing to take that next step. We had intentions of re-signing Tutu, and so when you're just looking at, what are the plans for your receiver room, it was going to be a challenging fit moving forward. And with respect to him, I think he is going to get a better opportunity to shine, whether that was outside or obviously with Seattle. I'm glad it worked out for him.
Working with Les about making that decision now and not taking, I guess, as much as you can, the human element out of that decision and focusing on the football team.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and we've talked about it before, Sarah, you don't ever take the human element out of it. These are hard conversations. I think when you look back, and I've been open and honest about some of the different decisions that we've made, I think you just want to communicate with clarity and make sure that people understand. I think I always use the preface too, especially when you're talking about football decisions. Been wrong before, I'll be wrong again, but what we try to do is apply our core values and principles to make the best decisions for a football team. And sometimes those don't benefit individuals that have been incredibly instrumental in establishing a culture, the productivity on the field, the way that he's impacted his teammates, myself. And so it was really hard. But I think you do have the responsibility to make decisions that are best for our football club, and that was it. It doesn't change, the amazing 8 years. There's a lot of memories, and I think the hard part is the human element, and you're never going to separate that. As soon as you stop feeling that way, then I don't want to do this anymore. And so was very challenging, but I do think that there was good, healthy dialogue, and really Cooper and I were able to have a lot of good conversations as well. And I think the one thing that I do know he knows is how much I appreciate him, how much I love him, and how grateful I am for the time that we had. Even if I'm probably not, he's probably not my biggest fan right now. Yep.
And I can understand sort of it's difficult to answer.
Yeah.
He did not feel that there was a ton of clarity,
Yeah.
right? And I guess I wonder, like, for you, do you feel that you did provide that clarity?
Yeah, I think we do. And here's the thing. I think you want to be careful in regards to, all right, let's not take unnecessary. There's an element of, there was clarity, there was an understanding of this is the direction that we're going to go. Now, to be able to provide all the context, we didn't have all the context that was applicable in regards to, all right, hey, telling the plans in regards to, all right, what did we really envision that receiver room? There was a possibility we thought Devontae Adams would be a possibility, but you don't know. You know he's going to have other interests. There was a possibility we were going to re-sign Tutu Atwell, but we didn't know at the time. And so I think the most important thing was when we had made the decision that we're going to seek a trade or at least grant him his release, that was very quickly after the season, which I thought he deserved that clarity in regards to the direction we're going. Now, exactly why all those things occurred, there had to be a little bit of time to be able to provide the appropriate context, and that wasn't applicable in the moment.
Sure. Tush push.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I thought there'd be no chance that they would, ban it.
Yeah. Well, I heard I had a heated argument about this with Howie and John Ferrari. Here's what I told them, and this is the truth. I don't believe in banning something because them and Buffalo do it better than anybody else. So I'm not necessarily in agreement with that. I don't like the optics of the play. It looks like a rugby scrum. There are some health and safety risks, from my communication with Dr. Sills about this. Those same things do exist on other types of sneaks, goal line, short yardage situations, and there is some inevitable risk that this game entails, but I'm not in favor of it, but I also know that I sound like a hater because they've done it better than anybody else, and I'll acknowledge that as well.
And just from that context,
yes,
where the innovation for somebody to craft a play that's been so successful.
Yeah.
How does that sit with you?
No, and that's the one thing I will say. There's a lot of elements of just pushing a player in general. When you look at the field goal block play, we don't allow those types of things. And so there's some just elements of, I wish we didn't really allow this in the first place. I do have some empathy for the refs in terms of some of the situations and how granular these things can be and how difficult it can be to officiate. I'll be interested to see, I mentioned this yesterday, how the vote goes today. But I don't like that I sound like a hater taking it out because they do it better, but they do. They coach it really well. There's a momentum. There's an ability to be able to get underneath people, and then there's obviously a size, and then just the overall athleticism and strength of Jalen to be really efficient at that play, as well as Josh with the Bills. You know what? And I think when it really boils down to it, it's just the comfort of the optics of the play. It really is. The health and safety stuff, we're always trying to do things. One of the things I've appreciated about being on the committee is how much intentionality there is in terms of trying to make a physical game as safe as possible and eliminate the risk for our players. And so you can't take all those types of plays out. So that's the first thing that you really look at. And there are some risks from what I've understood. If you want to counter that, there's also other plays where there's risk as well. So you want to be consistent with that. But it's more just the optics, in terms of what football. It was the same reason why I wasn't comfortable with the kickoff play last year either. It just is really it's a very foreign look. But then when you see, how that looks, excuse me, in those situations, it looks like a rugby scrum, and that's kind of where it's just not comfortable. But I'd be surprised if it ends up being good. Great leader, great player, a guy that will pour into his teammates, will challenge his coaches because of the way that he looks at the game, the way that he prepares. Got great physical and mental toughness. He's a legacy player with us. I love Cooper, and I wish him the best, except for those 2 games we see you guys next year.
Sean, the decision to
Go
ahead.
Devontae was telling us about the highlights of him that you narrated and sent. How would you describe yourself as a recruiter?
Aggressive, like he said, right? I don't know. I'd like to think that there was more I think, fun to deal with. I think what he did feel from that is the energy, the belief. There's always been a respect, and we've had kind of surface level conversations Ran into him, like he had mentioned to you guys, at the Derby a handful of years ago, and then when we've practiced against them or when we've played, he's a guy that I've always just had a respect for the way that his film speaks to you, and the things that he can do, and then you get to know him a little bit and how important his family is. He's a mature, he's a mature 32 years old, and he's got a body of work that has been consistent. And you watch that tape with New York last year, you watch what he's done with the Raiders for the last handful of years, going back to Green Bay. It is some special stuff, and so you cut some of those things up, and it was easy to narrate because it was all a bunch of fun things to be able to watch, and I think he had some fun with it. I knew this when I sent him that video. He's either thinking one of two things: man, I like this guy, or he's freaking whacked, and probably both. But he decided to come with us, so we'll take it.
At what point?
The video was so long that he thought his Wi-Fi was messed up because it took forever to load.
How does it work in your mind when across the league news is surfacing Devontae Adams may be available? I mean, are you when you see that, when you hear that, are you immediately thinking, wow?
Oh, no question. Well, I think you're always identifying, when you look at it, especially when you're just talking about, hey, knowing that you're going to have really a lot of change in your receiver room. Tutu is a free agent, got him re-signed, and then you're looking at Devontae, and then you're looking at, okay, some of the other team needs, and what are the different avenues at which you can fill them, and when a player of his caliber is potentially going to be available, especially where you can talk to him right away when he gets released from the Jets, that is something that we were in tune with. He was a guy that we had identified early in the process that we would want to be able to, when you're putting together your free agency plans and you're saying, all right, based on what his numbers looked like with the Jets, that was probably going to be a direction they were going to go. He was a guy that we had targeted early on in the process, and so then when it was official that we could talk to him, we made a push, and there was a consistent belief that this was the right direction from coaches, from Les, Kevin, Tony, and then Frank Bauer was great to be able to work with as well, to be able to get it done. He and Tony did a great job with it.
Okay, let me get this one. You've talked through the year, several times that I need to do a better job of getting Tutu involved, right? So I think for a lot of fans, when it was like Tutu Atwell signed for $10 million, what's the thinking behind that?
I think when you look at his body of work, when he's been able to play, especially in some of the times that he was playing when Cooper was on IR, there was a lot of production. And if you project that over the course of 17 games, you just watch what he was able to do. He's matured as a young man. I love the person, getting to know him. And I think that he's only getting better. He's 24 years old. I thought he really improved his route detail. For a smaller guy, he's got a good catch rate. He catches the ball outside of his frame really well. He's an explosive player that people know about, and so he creates separation. And I think there is some stuff that, I think the fans are accurate in that I haven't done a good enough job of utilizing him. And when you look at the times when he's been able to play, whether that be because some people were out or not, he has produced and he's delivered. And we're looking forward to seeing, more of that ascension, and he's going to be on the field a lot more, particularly in, a lot of those three receiver sets where when he's been on the field, he's done a really good job. And like I said, if you project that over the course of 17 games, and hopefully you're in the right
coaching to catch the offensive linemen in this class, a lot, especially attack, a lot of shorter arm guys compared to other years. Do you have a threshold that you look at with arm length? And if you don't, at what point do you look at a guy and say, look, he's going to have to compensate by doing some other things really well to deal with maybe some shorter arms?
Yeah, I think I think everybody has these measurements. I do get a kick out of that, especially like when you talk about a player like Will Campbell, because he plays long. You have some guys that might measure with length, but they don't play long. Aaron Cromer, our old offensive line coach who's in Buffalo, does a great job. He used to say, it's one thing to measure long, but do you play long? Are you playing with extension? Are you using that length? I don't see it inhibit, especially I know Will's been a guy that's been talked about. It sure doesn't look like it's going to be an issue to me. There are certain things where you have an idea of, all right, what are the comps around the league in terms of the arm length and some of those different things that allow you to be successful just based on the nature of what you're asked to do, snap in and snap out, and who you're going against. We had a guy that was pretty good too that I think didn't measure well on the defensive line that changed the whole game. So I think those are parts of the evaluation process. But the tape always speaks to you, and if you might not measure a certain way, but if you are able to overcome it, or you show that you're playing the way that you need to be able to play within the framework of your size or whatever it is, that's the most important thing for us.
No. Sean, with the positions in Texas, what do those coaches do for you, and do you feel like they'll make a smooth transition to these roles?
Well, I think their background, I mean, these guys see the game from a big picture lens. Nick has an infectious energy and enthusiasm. He's going to bring it every single day. Jerry's got just a great demeanor. I think they'll balance each other out. He'll be a great, addition to be able to be in that quarterback room with CJ and some of the other great coaches they have. But I'm fired up for Nick. He'll do a great job. I think he and D'Amico are really great personality fits, and fired up for my guy Nick.
No. When you haven't done it before, how do you've had guys that have done this before, you get them kind of ready?
Yep.
What is the grooming process to get someone ready to be
I think the great thing for Nick is he was always preparing to take those next steps while still being totally present in his role. And I think, I go back to even just his foundation, starting with Coach Belichick and the amount of ball that you're exposed to, doing ball the right way. He was ready. He sees the game through an all-22 lens. I think that he's going to do an excellent job, and he's been preparing himself just based on the way that he approaches every single day.
Hey, Sean, what are those? As he's working with you and as he's developed, even just from afar, and I guess you guys have conversations from time to time.
I'll tell you what, Mike. Liam and I went through what was, I've talked about it before, the most challenging year that I've ever had in coaching. And at the time it was not fun, but I think we would both say so much growth occurred for us both, having to go through some really hard stuff and challenge a lot of the things that you are built on, that you're about, and it revealed some things in me, and I know that was really hard on him, and I could have done a much better job of being the leader that really our team, that he deserved as the offensive coordinator. But I know this, we're a lot closer for having gone through it. It made us both stronger. I think he did a great job at Kentucky. There were some things that he overcame there. And then I'll tell you what, it was really fun watching just the way that he was able to sequence games, the way that he was able to influence and impact. You talk to Baker, you talk to Todd Bowles, you talk to Kevin Carberry, and you see the job that those guys did there. It was a lot of fun, and I thought what was really cool, and a huge credit to Liam, is there's been a lot of things that foundationally he's got to learn, and then he's also added where, hey, it's his offense. He was able to adjust and adapt to their players, and I'm really happy for Liam. I think he'll do a great job with the Jags, and especially because he and James get to be able to partner up and lead together, and so I'll certainly be a Jags fan now. You know what? He's talking about in 2018, and he reminds me of, and I think you want to go back to some of those times when you almost feel like you were able to operate with an unobstructed mind. It's like, I use the analogy, I've heard Josh Whiteskin talk about this, where you look at, when you picture a child learning how to walk, and there's fearless, there's no fear of judgment, there's no fear of failure. There was something that was just a little bit more pure when I first started, that you often want to be reminded of, the enjoyment, the authentic energy, the power of kind words when you really mean it. And when he reminded me of that, I'm thinking, man, have I become a little bit more of a dick then? I'm not as nice as I used to be, but he's a stud, and that story really did resonate with me. And you don't ever want to forget about treating people the way they deserve it, and recognizing them, and really building them up.
Hey, Sean,
Michael Boyd, what kind of strengths was
the way he plays the game, the ability to be able to dictate a lot of protections, because he is a guy that if you put a back on him, you're going to be in some mismatched situations. You've got to account for him with alignment, and we were able to elicit a lot of different looks because of his versatility in some of our rush packages. He's a stud, and it was really fun to be able to see his growth, and I'm really happy for him, and going to a great organization, a great team, and he'll do a hell of a job there.
Watch James impact and even help close.
Well, I think one of the coolest things, just witnessing Les. You talk about the security, to give people the autonomy, let them lead while you're always there to be able to help guide. And he has really, and James has earned the right to have the platform that he earned to run a lot of the different things as it relates to the draft, undrafted free agent. But Les was always right there. to be able to, he had such trust, but he was always verifying. And I just think the growth, when you're believed in and when you're given autonomy and trust, I think it's given back to you. But James he works at it. He's got a great feel for the game. He's got a great ability to be able to watch players. One of the things I admired the most about him, how authentic and how intentional he was about really trying to see the game through the same lens as us as coaches, while also being honest about his opinions. He was a guy that understood the landscape of the league. He had a great feel for, obviously, the college landscape, and then being able to project, all right, where are we headed offensively, defensively, in the kicking game? Where do we need to go for our team build, and identifying really players throughout the draft. He's got an incredible emotional intelligence as well. You guys hear him when he speaks to the media, and I know you've got to know him a little bit, but there's just calm demeanor. There's this clarity at which he communicates. He's able to connect, and when I got a chance to talk to Tony Baselli when he was leading that search, and he's going through all the things that they're looking for in a general manager candidate, I said, I wish I could tell you you're not explaining James Gladstone to a T, but you are, and we'll miss him, but he'll do a great job there. I'm happy for him. Yeah.
You've experienced that as well. So kind of wondering, calling back to really telling you, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, sure. The kid is right. Yeah, you know what? I don't. He has so much more wisdom than me. I don't know if I ever necessarily looked at it like that, as much as just not losing the purity of it, because there are things that you go through where you get calloused, and you don't want it to take away your stinger and your joy and your zest for continuing to pursue hard things and continuing to really just enjoy the mastery of your craft and really helping elevate people you're around in situations you're a part of. And, I don't think people will underestimate him, though, because when you hear him speak, there's been a lot of people that have done a really good job, and I think while he might be young, I think he'll accelerate his experience with his hard work and the time that he puts in.
I'm sure that you've been asked this before.
Yeah. What's up, man?
How are you, sir?
Good to
I'm
see
good,
you.
dog. Sirianni,
He's got a really good understanding and relatability to that quarterback spot. Both he and Kevin, Zach Robinson, that was kind of why it's really been, Dave Ragone, that's kind of been the model for us. Guys that have done it, they've played the position at a high level. It's so difficult, and then when you have, people that understand exactly what that entails, I just think there's an ability to be able to say, all right, how can I make the most difficult position as easy as possible? How can I have an understanding of exactly what they're going through? I think that's why you saw Baker play at such a high level. You saw Will Levis, when he was coaching him at Kentucky, play at such a high level, and I expect him to do the same thing with Trevor.
The transition from play caller to becoming a head coach, what is it about Liam that you think just kind of equips him to make that?
Well, I think he's always seen the game from a big picture perspective, and I think he's hired a great staff. That's the first thing when you're helping, and you're just talking to one of your buddies, you're saying, hey, you hire a great staff. Just because you're the head coach doesn't mean you have to have the answers to everything, and you don't have to do everything. You got to be able to lean on people, especially in positions where you're saying, all right, I'm going to spend a good amount of my time here, so let me make sure in those other areas I have people that I can really lean on. You have people to help you with the game management. You have a defensive coordinator that you're heavily leaning on. You have other coaches on your offensive staff that you can trust to help make those adjustments to be able to call a game accordingly. And so you're not in it alone, but he'll do a great job. And I think really I think he should have a ton of confidence to be able to build on what a great job he did as a play caller. And then adding a couple of those other responsibilities, I think he's excited about it, and he's built for the challenge. I think that's unlikely. I'll be honest with you. I haven't done a whole lot of work on the quarterbacks. I feel really good about where our quarterback room is, even though we're not naive to the fact that Matthew's hopefully got a couple more years that he wants to play, but he's also earned the right to be able to say after this year, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and hang him up. But I'm hopeful that that's not the case. But I haven't done enough work to really have an educated opinion on that. That's not something that I would see us going, but maybe not, huh?
Hey, Sean, 2020, the Olympics, those blue flag football in the Olympics. Do you see a scenario in which an NFL player, just with the timing of camp, could take part in something like that?
I don't know enough about it to speak on it quite yet. I think that that'd be for a player to be able to answer. I think to be able to compete in the Olympic Games would be something pretty special, but knowing that your job is number one, but I probably don't know enough about it. You'd probably be better equipped to answer that than I would in terms of the timing and things like that.
And Sean, on Sunday, I saw you having a conversation with Howie Roseman and John Ferrari and Sean McDermott in the hallway about the tush push. Take me into that conversation. Like, what is their counter argument? I feel like they were sort of lobbying you in that moment to be like, hey.
It's funny. I heard it was a heated discussion. It was a very healthy dialogue. I have a ton of respect for those guys, and I thought it was cool, because Sean and I have talked about this a little bit just on the competition committee. Basically, they make a bunch of valid points in regards to, some of the pushback is about health and safety risks. Howie made a great point about the fact that, hey, there's other plays, well, why is that any different than a normal sneak, some of the short yardage and goal line situations? I said it's a very valid point. And then I did acknowledge the fact that I didn't like the optics, even though I know I sound like a hater wanting it out because you guys do it better than anybody else, and they were telling me I was a hater for that.